Derek, in the 19th century, Frederick Douglass made the observation that there's a difference and a distinction between what he called American Christianity and the Christianity of Christ. Shed some light on that. What exactly did he mean by that when he made that observation?
Well, Frederick Douglass was identifying the religiosity of the United States at that time. Of course, it was still a young nation. We were talking antebellum period, so it was prior to the war. But what he observed was many slaveholders were professing Christians, even in the evangelical sense. And yet many of those planters and slaveholders who were believers also held slaves who might themselves have been believers. And what he observed was this odd paradox between the religion of Christ, right, the actual gospel, and what he observed in the treatment of those of African descent. And so he makes the statement, between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference. Now, what he was getting at there was really a sense in which America was not living according to its Christian values at the time. We can interrogate what that actually means. But on some level, what he was calling for was a shift away from the outward signs of religion and a shift toward an embrace of issues such as justice for all.
Yeah, so in the 21st century, we look back on that now, and it really seems very obvious and glaring where those differences were. But are there any differences today in the 21st century between the Christianity of America and Christianity itself? I mean, do we still have those same problems that we're just blind to?
Well, I think there are many debates around what Christianity looks like today. And if we talk in terms of evangelical Christianity, I tell my students often that it's easy to paint evangelicals, especially white evangelicals, with one stroke. And I think it's far more complex than that. Even an evangelical or a believer who has a connection to, based upon a call toward seeking and saving the lost, right? So their posture is one that tries to get us to the end times, the eschaton, the millennial reign. But I think part of the issue becomes we move there and we don't have a real viable, robust conversation about difference, culturally and otherwise. There are many Christians who think many different ways, and while evangelicals have a mandate to seek and save the lost, I think some of what gets lost are the experiences of those lost. And what it seems to me folks can do a better job of doing, especially in terms of evangelicals, is to create spaces of exchange that are deliberate so that the lost can not only be heard, but they can be understood for where they are in their social surroundings.
So what exactly does that look like? How do we create those spaces? Or do you have any examples in mind of things we can actually strive for there?
Yeah, you know, I'm one of those ones who is really a proponent of intentional, deliberate exchange, dialogue. It sounds corny, you know, I have a white friend, to be sure, but on some level, it does take that. It takes moving into spaces of exchange that are intimate, that force us to go beyond our kind of siloed experiences, where we hold in our own stereotypes and self spaces and presuppositions, all those fancy terms, but that force us to dig deeper to understand the nature of each person and how they tick. And once you start doing that, you get a sense of what makes that person's faith up, what social experiences are connected to that faith. When we get there and we start seeing some of the messy and complex elements of our faith, we then can start to dismantle the walls that it seems to me separate us.